Hi, I'm Jeff Lipsky. Welcome to the Photography Rebuttal. I'm talking to my friend Michael about my commercial, editorial, and advertising career.
Welcome to the channel for the first time. I wanted to kind of paint an overall picture of you, what you do, what you shoot for my audience, whom are generally kind of leaning towards car photographers, and they may not have be expecting some sort of coverage on my channel about shooting portraiture, but personally, I think that there is a lot of overlap between what I do and what you do. It's more the subject matter that's different. So I wanted to start off with if you could just tell us a little bit about how long you've been doing this, and primarily what kind of photography you do, and what kind of clients you work, and what kind of subject matter that you shoot.
Wow. Well, it's always, that's like the loaded question when someone says, what type of photography do you do? Because it's sort of multifaceted. You're not just doing one thing. I'm not specializing in one genre, but generally it's editorial, it's commercial advertising and commercial advertising. So
like when people see your work, it's like, they usually see a lot of celebrities.
They usually see the editorial. They see the editorial side, because a lot of the advertising work, you don't have a name attached. And when you're shooting editorial, obviously everyone sees your name. But most of my imagery, most of the images that people usually see are my celebrity portraits that I've shot for magazine covers or magazine stories. But that sort of translates when I shoot celebrities for editorial. That also takes me to shooting entertainment advertising. The magazines give me access to the celebrities so that I can shoot the entertainment advertising. And then I have a whole other side where I'm a lifestyle shooter, where I'll be shooting, models in situations, aspirational situations that sell products. It could be eyewear, it could be clothing, it could be pharmaceutical. So it's two sides. So sometimes when entertainment is slow, advertising, lifestyle is busy. Sometimes lifestyle is busy and entertainment, sometimes the celebrity is really busy and lifestyle is slow. So it's always nice to have both.
So clear this up for me, because I'm actually not even sure about the definition of the term entertainment. Does that only cover editorial of celebrities, or is it just any type of celebrity type of work?
I mean, generally, entertainment is sort of like the language used for advertising and in the entertainment world. So that's movie posters.
Okay.
If you meet a photographer that says, I do entertainment, I assume that they're doing, advertising for television shows and movies. If you say you're a celebrity photographer, which is I hate that term, it's usually encompasses everything. I think it encompasses entertainment advertising and editorial.
And paparazzi.
No, well, that's the thing. Some people say they're a celebrity photographer and they're standing behind a red velvet robe trying to grab a picture of a celebrity, and that to me is not celebrity photography. That's
right. Well,
another type of photography.
The only reason why I say that is because I met a photographer once who told me he shoots celebrities, when in fact he was a paparazzi photographer, and I didn't know that. I just thought it was the same thing.
It's to each his own. I don't look. Whatever photography you're into, that's great. Everyone, there's so many different types. So, but I happen to have always wanted to be a celebrity, sort of like a celebrity photographer. I looked at Herb Ritz and Life magazines and things like that I wanted to shoot portraits.
Now, is there, when you mentioned just now about shooting editorial, which leads to advertising, is that how it works in your industry, where you have to kind of start with editorial before you can move into advertising?
You need a portfolio. You need a portfolio. And how do you get that portfolio? How do you get those the portraits of the people who are in the movies? The access to them is from magazines. And unfortunately, the magazine industry has diminished quite a bit. and it used to be
yeah.
very abundant. Very abundant.
So for me, it's a little bit different because the people who are hiring like car photographers for ad campaigns generally don't look at the editorial pool for photographers or for even like inspiration. It's quite separate. So if you start shooting car editorials, you tend to kind of stay there, and there's no crossover. So I guess for us it's different because we can build our portfolio shooting tests, and you don't need a celebrity. Like I guess for you might need that person, but for me, I can grab a car anytime I want, and it doesn't need to be for a editorial shoot.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a little bit of a challenge, but again, I mean, a good photo editor back in the day would see that, if you didn't have celebrity in your book, but they saw your potential as a photographer, they would give you an assignment. Like my first portfolio didn't really have that much celebrity in it. It was, I shot every model. I felt like I shot every model in Los Angeles. I would go to Ford and Next and Wilhelmina and LA models, and I would go to all the agencies, and I tested and I shot all the models because they all needed the cover of their card, where they always needed portfolio work. So I was always shooting them. And that's how I built up my first book, pretty much. And that's the book I showed around to photo editors.
So knowing what you know now, having experienced I would say 30 years? Am I guessing right?
No, I'm not that old.
Oh, I don't know. She's 25.
I started my career late. I mean, I didn't start shooting until I was in my 30s.
Oh, okay,
I was fly fishing. I was a fly fishing guide and a snowboard instructor.
Yeah.
For 10 years in Telluride, Colorado. And then I decided, I want to do something else with my life. I had a passion for photography. So I moved out to Los Angeles to become a photographer. And that's where I started volunteering at Smashbox Studios. You're getting the abridged version. Smashbox Studios, I worked in the grip room, restocking the equipment at night for like a year, from midnight to like 8 a.m. And there I met other assistants that were coming through where all the photographers were shooting. And I got on a photo shoot as an assistant, and it started from there. Then I quit Smashbox, started assisting full time, became a first assistant for several photographers. And that lasted at least 2 years of first time assisting. And while that was happening, I was constantly shooting my portfolio, shooting the models. We were shooting film back then. So like at the end of the shoot, a photographer would give me, here, you can have the rest of the film. That was like gold, because that was, film was expensive and you needed it to do your tests. So I hoarded film, saved it, and then shot with it with friends who were also like a stylist assistant and a makeup assistant who was on those other jobs. We'd get together and we'd do our own productions. And what happened with that is all the assistants that I was working with, we all came up together in the industry. So like now, a stylist who's like the biggest stylist or the biggest hair person in the business, we all started together testing. And it's so funny. We all, it's nice to see success from your friends. Not everyone makes it, but if you, pursue it and you have a passion for it, it happens. And
so, I was trying to draw some parallels between, when you started and when I started. And I think because you're a little bit older than I am, but you started late. So I think we probably started actually around the same time. That's what I was trying to get at. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I had a cover of a magazine, like Premiere Magazine. It was in 2003. I think that was my first real cover of a celebrity. It was Paul Walker, and it was they did double cover. So one cover was Paul Walker, and the other cover was Naomi Watts.
So all of that was leading up to this question, and that is, you and I have been doing this for a couple of decades now, and for my viewers, perspective, now is 2024. If we were to restart our careers now, factoring in all the changes that have happened in the photography industry, what would you do differently nowadays versus when you first started? And perhaps more importantly, what would you not do any differently? Like something that would remain the same.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's a really good question, Michael. I mean, boy, times have changed, because when I was a photographer, when I was starting, it was all about the magazine business. I believe there was so much more opportunity back then that it was it was a little bit easier to get a start. To be honest with you, there was no iPhones. Not everyone was a photographer. It was less competitive. It was a smaller pool. Everyone wants to be a photographer, but there was, the camera situation where we were shooting medium format and large format. There was more, in a weird way, there was more technology involved. You had to know your f-stops. You had to know how to use these big, chunky manual cameras. So being a photographer was not only a creative, occupation like it is, but also it was a very tactile, like you were mechanical. You had to know not just lighting, and obviously lighting was important, but you just had to be like you know how to work a camera. And, as soon as digital started coming out, and you had different types of cameras, like everyone had their different flavor and a different look. They were using different film stocks and different lenses, and that created a certain look that you had. And suddenly, overnight, Canon had a digital camera, and everyone was shooting with the same camera. And to me, that was one of the hardest things you had to battle with. Is now everyone is a photographer. Everyone has access to a camera, the same camera. And obviously there's Photoshop and you can do different things, but it was just a little bit easier. I don't know if I'm explaining it the right way. So being more competitive now, you have to be a lot more aggressive as a photographer. You have to be able to, it's not just I have great work. It's I have great work, and you have to get it in front of people. You have to network. You have to see people. Back in the day, the way that I would get work is I would actually have and I would still have this today. Is if I was starting out, I would have a printed portfolio. I would have a portfolio on my computer or a PDF that I could send out. But without a doubt, I would have a printed portfolio. It can be any size. And with that portfolio, if you can get a meeting with somebody, and this was true back then, and this rings true today, is you're selling yourself along with your work. So if I ever got a meeting to present my work with somebody, I felt very confident that I could possibly get a job. If you believe in yourself, and if you believe you liked your work. When I first started showing my portfolio, and I wasn't too sure about my work, I remember sitting in an office, and the editor would be turning the pages, and I sort of would be like almost wincing, like, "Oh, I don't like that. Oh yeah, I love that photo," but like I didn't have the confidence. And then suddenly, I started going into people's offices with my work, and I felt confident about my imagery, and they would turn the page, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I shot that." It was an attitude change, and that's when I started working more. When I felt like, "Oh, you don't like my work? Okay, that's cool. Next person will." You got to believe. You're waiting for someone to appreciate your work. Not everyone's going to appreciate work, but you have to be confident, and you have to appreciate it yourself and feel like you can do it. So having a printed portfolio today, I believe, and again, getting in the door, seeing someone face to face, because some of these ad campaigns are really simple. It's not the hardest part is getting the job. It's not necessarily shooting it. I could be shooting a person against a white wall for an ad, for some pharmaceutical ad. That could be the highest price job I've ever worked for. It could be the greatest paycheck ever. And it's the most simple, but it was getting the job that was the hard part. And what differentiates you from the other photographer that can shoot the same thing? It's your personality, it's your team, it's your confidence. It's, there's a lot of money on the line. Even though it's a simple job, they have to have confidence in you that you're going to get it done.
So flip the table around. If you were the client hiring a photographer for that specific job that you just talked about, you as a client, anyone can shoot it because it's not technically difficult, and maybe it's not very complicated in terms of lighting. Like, it's a straightforward, simple shot. Anyone can do it. You will probably value something else like photographer's personality over the actual portfolio itself, right?
I mean, unfortunately, yes, that happens. They can.
Yeah. I'm actually finding that happens a lot more nowadays, where in the past I always found that, maybe, I think the portfolio speaks a lot more. People judge the photographer more in the portfolio, but nowadays not so much. And it's more personality, professionalism, stuff like that. And it's all
it's so important.
Package deal. Yeah.
So, it's a little bit harder today, I feel, because there's a much more competitive market. But if I was doing it, I would make sure that your work that you're presenting or the work that you're showing, whether it's on your on social media, and all social media should lead to your website, because you have to have a website. Mm-hmm. Instagram is not a website to me. It's not a portfolio. It's to me, it is a place where someone can, they get to see your work, and it leads them to your portfolio. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it leads them to your website, but it's having continuity in your work. So after someone looks at your work, they want to know what they want to see a consistency. So if you have a work that's all over the place, if you're shooting cars and you're shooting people, that's okay. But there should be some sort of like color, the tones are connecting, or the crops, or, there's something that says that you shot it. Someone else didn't shoot that. You shot the entire portfolio. Like so after an editor or an art director looks through whether it's on a website or through a book, when they get to the last page, they know what kind of photographer you are. They know if they hired you, what they're going to get.
You brought up a good point, because I've always, I'm pretty convinced that by now I know what it takes to build a really good portfolio. Okay. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And a lot of people talk about style, and some people talk about vision. Some people say it's the same thing. I personally don't think it's the same thing. But at the end of the day, they're just words, and it's all semantics. But I think there's some importance there. And tell me what you think about this, right? When people say style, I need to find my style, for example, or what is that one thing that I can build consistently and it's personal to me? I think a lot of people are thinking about something visual. Like you just mentioned earlier, it could be a color, or it could be a way of cropping. Those are visual things, right? And I think that you can do that on a project by project basis. So for one project, you can stick to a certain type of cropping or a certain type of color grading. But by the next time you move to another project, you might want to change it up depending on what that project's about, right? You don't want to stick to the same colors forever, right?
Not everything is for.
And so that's kind of, I think there's something more than just the visuals. I think there's something more emotional and personal. Right?
Yes. It's about, in fact, when you don't really know what your personal style is, like I didn't know what my personal style was until someone told me, right? Because you're so close to your work. You're just shooting what you shoot. You're shooting what you like, right? That's who we are as photographers. I'm shooting things that I like. And then I hope that someone else likes it, so they hire me. I'm not trying to shoot things so people like it, right? I'm not shooting things to conform to be hired. I'm shooting things that I personally want to shoot in the way that I want to shoot them. I'm not forcing anything. And then you are hoping that someone else likes that too, and they hire you. Otherwise, you're going to be, who are you? You got to shoot you. You got to shoot what you like. So when someone tells you your style, when the first person told me my style, it wasn't about my color, it wasn't about my tones, it wasn't about my cropping. It was, gosh, your subjects seem really at ease, right? You know, your subjects are relaxed and they're unguarded. And I'm like, really? And so ultimately, oh, that's what I do. And so when I photograph someone, I'm not one of those photographers that's very static and I'm quiet and I'm not talking and I'm just like methodically moving their chin a certain direction and I'm taking a light and I'm pushing it over and making, they're an object. When I go to someone's house to photograph them or I'm in a studio, I'm like, what's going on? Oh my gosh, I just saw you in this and, blah, 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 and like get them going and like being real with them and having good food and great music. And, I would shoot people at a beach house. If I had a studio shoot, instead of going to a studio, I'd rent a beach house and put the studio at the beach house. So we're hanging out at the beach. If you have the luxury to do that, sometimes some jobs I do, and we are hanging out at the beach. You're like, oh my God, this is great. And they're relaxed and they're unguarded. There's certain things that you can do. So it's not just visual. You're right. It's what in portrait world that I'm in, it's, seeing them relaxed and catching them a little bit off guard, but in a endearing, nice way. Like I'm not a serious photographer. I dare say my subject matter is a little bit more on the lighthearted side. It's not dark and moody, even though I wish I was dark and moody because that's what I like. When I see Nadav Kander, I'm like, God, I want to shoot like that, but it's not me. And you got to stay with who you are.
Like Nadav Kander's, like he kind of forces his subjects to look a certain way. You can tell, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's a genius, and he can, he's subtly doing his thing to manipulate people to shoot the photograph that he wants.
Yeah.
And, but.
So are you actually having conversations with your subject as you're shooting?
Of course. I mean, it's not easy. Yeah. I mean, it's extreme, and it's a learned thing. Like when I first started shooting, there was something that a term that I coined called YPS. And that was young photographer syndrome. I don't think anyone's really heard of it because I coined it.
Okay.
So, and that is young photographer syndrome is when you're shooting something and it's simple as you leave the lens cap on, or there's no film in the camera, or you're shooting and the lens is on manual and it's not on autofocus and everything's out of focus. Like there's just something that goes wrong because you're nervous and you are, it's just shit happens. And the longer you shoot, the more you shoot, you learn to avoid those things that happen, those missteps that can happen.
Are you saying that? I mean, it's just a rookie mistake, and these are things that you learn.
So easy to make. Because when you're behind a camera, and this is for everyone, and I noticed that younger people, how funny they look through their camera differently. Some people just use their big viewfinder in the back of the camera. I'm their big screen. I need to have my viewfinder up to my eye. That's what I'm used to. And when you do that, sometimes you get a little bit of tunnel vision because you have this big, massive camera behind you in front of your face. And it's hard to communicate with your subject, right? Because you're talking, and if you're talking low or you're mumbling, and your subject's like, what? And you just have this big camera in front of you. They can't see your mouth move. They can't. Sometimes they can't tell what you're saying. So you have to project yourself a lot more, and you also have to be aware of people around you because when you get tunnel vision, you just see that one thing. You forget that other people are around, and you're directing people sometimes a little bit more harshly than you would if you didn't have the camera in front of you. Like, yo, someone get that out of there. Get that shoe. And, you're like, you can be yelling at people when you're a nice person and you don't want to yell at anyone, but you get stuck in that little world. And it's an acquired, learned thing of how to communicate with your subject and your team behind your camber. So
is it any more difficult to communicate with VIPs? Or maybe do they just want to treat do they just want to be treated like a regular human being?
Yeah, I mean, you got to realize that everyone has a good day and everyone has a bad day, right? And sometimes your subject might be having a bad day, or they have very limited time, and that's the one thing I think that separates shooting notable people. I mean, everyone is busy, but some people are literally like they've got 15 minutes. You know, they're so busy, but they're giving you their day, so you want to make their day worthwhile. And it's about respect. You know, most people are really nice. I've never really had that much problem with the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, I hate to say celebrity, but you know, notable people I photograph. I've only on like one hand had bad experiences. And that was something that was out of their control too. You know, you just have to be understanding. But to me, it's, you want to stack everything in your favor as much as you can so that less things go wrong. Having control over your photo shoot, you know, where you're going to shoot, when you're going to shoot, you know, having an idea of the lighting, what's going on. And have even talked about lighting, because I think lighting's one of the most important things in photography, and knowing light. And I'm not afraid to say it. I'm a natural light shooter, which has a little bit of a taboo. I think it did have a taboo for a while, because people think it's such a simple thing, but we can touch on that.
You know, the funny thing is, you can say I have no problem. Like I got caught up in this natural light versus, you know, artificial light thing, and I think the controversy is because if you know how to actually light with artificial lighting, it's perceived as a higher skill set than shooting in natural light. But I think to shoot in natural light well, you also need to know the same core principles as using artificial lighting.
Yeah, you have to be able to see it. You have to see the light. You have to know what's going on. Like right now, I'm talking to you, and I'm like, oh, I got a highlight hitting my cheek, right? Like, you know, I'm always looking at how, I got dogs. I'm always looking at how light affects skin. And, you know, everyone has different skin tone, and everyone has, some people's skin's more reflective. That's where makeup comes into play too. So learning about makeup and learning about hair. And again, we're talking about commercial entertainment photography, portraits, you know, hair and makeup are really big in what I do, and understanding how that works and how it affects people's skin, and having good hair, you know, having a hairstyle that you think is appropriate. Sometimes you have control over that. Every beginning of almost every celebrity shoot I've ever done, if it's a woman, we're talking about the day before what we're going to do with the hair, because it depends on what they're wearing and what's the setting.
How involved do you get into the styling and the makeup and the hair?
Very. The more control you have, the better chances you are of taking a better picture.
So when you work with a stylist and you know, hair and makeup, I mean, they're the hands-on. They actually do the work, but you know, and I guess in a way, you come in because you're the big picture guy. You oversee the entire concept of the shoot and where it's going and what it's for. You know, what your client's priorities are. You gotta factor all of that in. So you got to present them a very clear vision of, you know, I think this dress will look good with this hair and this kind of makeup. But at the same time, you know that you're not exactly a fashionista, so to speak, right? So there's got to be some, but
you know what you
balance
want.
between,
I mean,
like they're the experts at that kind of stuff. So how do you balance that?
You got to simplify it. You have to understand that, you know, you are not a makeup artist, but you know that if you want the skin to be dewy or not dewy, you can say that, oh, maybe the lipstick should match the dress. It doesn't have to be so complex. That as simple as hair saying, I want it up or down, can make a difference.
You know, again, going back to, from the viewer's perspective, you know, a lot of people may love photography as a hobby, as an amateur. They see glossy magazine covers, like yours, or they see a billboard on the street and they're like, how can I shoot that? And they could be a pretty good photographer. I'm not saying that the amateur means bad. I'm just saying amateur means not professional, not making a living at it. So I don't know. I get a lot of questions nowadays from my clients that I mentor. That how long does it take to get from zero to hero, basically? And I get the impression that a lot of people out there don't think it takes that much time. So I'm wondering what you think, because for me it took forever, right? And
I feel like I haven't made it yet.
Well, I mean, come on. I mean, let's consider your position as someone who has made it, because you are shooting campaigns, you are shooting top notables. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
but
So let's use your.
I haven't reached the peak of where I think I've always wanted to be. I'm still climbing.
What is that, King Charles? I don't know. Like what?
No, but there's no way. I mean, I feel like I'm nowhere near where I want to be.
Okay, but
and I get nervous when I'm ever going to make it.
Let's just say that a lot of people think shooting an ad campaign is the pinnacle. Okay, so let's assume that. But I'm not sure where it came from, where you can do it in a few years. For me, I didn't. I doubt you did either. If I can compare it to any job in the world, any corporate job, any job at all, you start at the bottom. It takes a long time to get to the top of that particular job that you do. Like even your clients, art directors, there's junior art directors, senior art directors, maybe a group art director, and then you go to like associate creative director, executive creative director. So like there's so many stages, and each stage takes 1 or 2 years, 1 year at maximum, at the fastest. That's I've seen like art directors I used to work with when I started are only now becoming creative directors. And that's so it takes, I think it takes a long time. So it's no surprise that a photographer will take the same amount of time, unless I'm not including the people who get extremely lucky.
I mean, I don't believe that you need to go to photography school. I think you learn in the genre that I shoot and you shoot, you don't have to go to photography school. You can, but you learn from experience, you learn from assisting. So you take those years off of you. And then, I don't think an assistant should assist for more than 2 years. Otherwise, you're going to be assisting you're not going to shoot. 2 years, I think, is a reasonable amount of time.
Is that how long you assisted for?
Yes, because I had a photographer that said, you're going to work with me and you're not going to work for me more than 2 years. I'm going to kick you out and you're going to shoot. Mm-hmm. He was my mentor, and he was very good about you're done. You got to go. And you know what? I did that with some of my assistants. I'd be like, you're done. See ya.
Wait, so you worked for one photographer for 2 years and that was it?
No, I did not work. I worked for many, many photographers, but one photographer in particular was that way. Oh shit, hold on. My dog's eating the remote control. Good night. Bad girl.
Oh no. Hope it still works.
You're bad. Oh, I have like 6 of these.
Oh wow, already? She's gone through that many?
Oh my God. Okay, anyway.
What I was saying was that I assisted for 6 years, and I know that was a lot longer than anyone I've ever spoken to who's assisted. But for me, I always thought that there will come a day where I will realize that I will be ready to shoot professionally. And then, 6 years down the road, that day still never came. So I had to force myself to quit, because I would have just kept going. Right. And if you can imagine someone who's done it for 6 years, like as a freelance assistant, you're in demand, because you're a pretty damn good assistant.
I was busy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the phone's going to be ringing like every day. Right. So it was really even more difficult to quit, because, you're actually doing quite well as an assistant. But if you ever want to jump ship, it's difficult, because the day you stop assisting and start shooting, like you're nobody. You have to start all over again.
Yeah, it's cold turkey.
So,
I mean, that's when you starve. It's literally I made a point when I stopped assisting. I severed the ties. I said I'm not going to assist anymore, and that was my motivation to start getting work as a photographer, because I wanted people to see me as a photographer, not an assistant. And that's when I starved. I literally was like, I had a bag of dimes, and I would like use the dimes to buy food. Or I remember going 2.5 months behind rent. You know, like, I am not making it, but I purposely put myself in that situation in an odd way so that it motivated me to start work. You know, it put a fire under me to get those jobs, to make it work, to network, to shoot tests, to do things, to be resourceful.
yeah, how long would it take on average, do you think? Is it like, how long did it take you to get your first pretty big decent campaign?
I got lucky. I mean, it's part of it's luck, right? It's timing, tenacity, and talent in that order. Timing, tenacity, talent. So, my friend worked at at Gap headquarters in San Francisco. And she I believe she was like an intern. And I said, wow, you're interning at Gap. Do you know any art directors? She's like, oh yeah, there's an art director down the hallway from me. I go, his name was An Chang, head art director for Banana Republic. And I said, if I get you work, do you think you can put it on his desk? She's like, oh yeah, we actually get along. I can like put anything on his desk. I'm like, wow. Okay. So I started shooting, knowing that I had that pipeline, that direct line to this art director. I started shooting models, and my connections with all the modeling agencies, because I had been shooting for them for a while. They're testing other models. I can get any model pretty much to work with me because I was giving them portfolio stuff. So I started shooting models that were Banana Republic-esque, or some of them had worked for Banana Republic. And I I would shoot it on film on medium format, big negatives. And I would get the contact sheets, and I'd circle an X and do really creative things with the contact sheet. And then I take it to a color copy place and I blow it up really big. And then I would send those to my friend to put on Anqing's desk. And I did it for a while. I did it for months and months. I every time I tested someone, I like send him one contact sheet of the photo shoot, but I was creatively doing marks on it. Right. That was some very tactile person. Right. And I'm still very analog. I mean, I have a record player. I still shoot film. So after 3 months, Anqi Chang cold called me, and he said, "Hi, Jeff, Anqing, from Banana Republic. We want to book you for, the week of blah, blah, blah. We're going to come down to Malibu, just checking if you're available." I'm like, what? And I had just stopped assisting, and I was in that starving phase. And I immediately hired my team of people who I tested with. So the hairstylist assistant, the makeup person who's just started doing makeup, not assisting, but starting to get her footing, a stylist. And we put this shoot together in Malibu. I had no idea what I was doing. I was I did in a way because I'd seen other photographers do it because I worked for them doing that same situation. And I had, I had done a lot of shoots of my own, shooting models, but it was different working with an art director. I had never worked with an art director before. So I had to collaborate with this person, and I had to present myself in a way where I knew what I was doing. And I didn't. I mean, I thought I did. I had the experience. I mean, that's where the imposter syndrome came in. And it was a very successful photo shoot. But what's interesting is that digital had come out in full swing, and I didn't feel comfortable shooting digital. And I convinced the creative director that I had to shoot negative film because I just didn't want to shoot digitally. I didn't know it. I was afraid of it. And I shot it on film. And I think that's maybe did one check against me for that. But it was a great photo shoot. and that going in my portfolio helped me.
Well, I
Quite
guess
a bit.
the doors kind of opened after that.
It
right?
opened up, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm working all the time now. It was
Right.
just another notch in my portfolio. And that's when I started showing my work, feeling confident about what I was shooting.
Sure.
And I got to shoot it
Now,
how I wanted to shoot it, natural light, models, doing the whole Banana Republic thing.
well, I mean, here's a good thing because I still remember the first few jobs that I got, and it's very difficult because you want to serve the client because it's important to please them, but at the same time, you also acknowledge that they're hiring you for your type of work. So I was like always battling internally in my head as I was shooting. Is this something I like, or is this something I think they would like? Like how should I approach this? Am I looking at like if I was you in your case, I would have like all these Banana Republic campaigns running through my head as I was shooting, trying to match that aesthetic or that feel, but at the same time, acknowledging that they hired me for me. So how would I do it my own way? And would that conflict what Banana Republic's aesthetic is? Like I would have all these things, going through my head, and it would be challenging. I remember that.
I mean, it ultimately you give them what they want exactly, and then you push it at the end to stuff that you want to do, right? Like you got to give the client, make them happy, and then you push it a little bit more. And it's hard to do that. It's hard. It's hard to give them to have that full control of this is what I'm going to do, because you might not work again for that client.
I think this is where your work and my work may differ a little bit because I always see like lifestyle shooting, especially your kind of work that where everyone's so relaxed and cool and chill. It makes me believe that there was a lot more freedom in the creative when you shoot to allow for that, right? Because you can't construct spontaneity because spontaneous is just doesn't it just has to happen naturally, right? So, but for my type of stuff, a lot of times it's planned to the T before we even shoot. So there's not much freedom creatively for me to move around outside of that. We have talked before about how to maximize a photo shoot for a client where you satisfy them first, and if there's 5-10 minutes afterwards to throw off a few frames just for yourself, you might as well do it because everyone's there, the set's already built. You might as well just extract as much photography out of that day after you satisfy the clients. But it's I find that for my kind of work, it's more difficult because each shot is so heavily planned, and there's not much room to move around. But in your case, maybe like shooting a portrait of someone takes it. It may not need to take a lot of time. So 5 minutes after a photo shoot is done, in your case, you can probably bang off quite a lot of shots. If we took, like for me, if I took all day to shoot 6 shots and I wanted to squeeze a 7th out of it, it will take me like another hour, and I might not have an hour,
Yeah.
So
I mean, it could be the same for us, but it depending upon how you light, But I mean, I purposely shoot really light. Like I'll have a grip truck of gear, and I just might use one reflector, whatever works best, whatever's needed, I'll use. And by moving light with my gear, I can do more shots. I'm more nimble. So I'm into shooting a lot of. I'm really into shooting a lot of setups. I'm not one who's overshoot something. I move on quickly because I wanted to get that variation in, and it's my process of like, the first couple setups won't necessarily be the ones that I wind up using. I sort of get into it, and I explain that to whoever I'm shooting. Not commercially, I'm talking editorially. A lot of times, especially if it's an actor or an actress, I'll say, we'll know when we get the photo, right? Like we both will know, and I'll let you know when it's happening, if in case you don't. There's a moment that happens, and so it's a process, and it's like a dance, and then suddenly there's synergy happening. I know it's such a cheesy word to say, but then suddenly you're like, oh, that's it. And 99% of the time, when I get the photos back, when I look at it, I'm like, that's the moment. That's it. Recognizing when that's happening is really important.
So I want to kind of bring up your work here, if I can. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a bit small. Let me just make it bigger.
Yeah, it's a good example to see, what we're talking about.
Yeah. So let's pick something like Jeff Bridges here. Okay.
Okay.
I'm picking this one because it looks exactly like what we've been talking about your work. He's super relaxed, and he feels very comfortable, in front of you. He's also naturally lit, but I can tell there's some fill, not a lot. But if is this your go-to or like a kind of default,
Well,
or
yeah.
is there some sort
I've
of
shot
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, you can't go wrong shooting someone in a car. So I knew where I was shooting him in Santa Barbara. I had scouted the land. He needed to be shot up north from me, and I went to Santa Barbara and scouted this property. And if there wasn't an old truck on the property, I would have put one on there, right? Because that adds another shot. Here I am shooting in just open land. There's no structures. There was a train track. There's a beach, and that's it, and the field basically. And so there's only so many things I could do with Jeff. And if I had a truck, that was an added shot. So selfishly, I want a truck. And so knowing the truck, I styled him accordingly. I had specific styling direction for him. So, it's purposeful. It's again, I'm steering the ship in my favor for a successful shoot. And so not only did I get on the train tracks, I actually got him in a truck. And, and I knew the time of day because I planned the time of day I was going to shoot him at, because the sun was going to be in a certain direction, and I could just use a reflector because I knew where the sun was going to be. And now if I didn't have the time of day planned, I have lights and everything that I needed, but I knew that I didn't need that situation. Just like.
So if we can generally say that your location work is naturally lit, you may or may not even be known for that. How would you approach studio work, where, I mean, it doesn't look like you even care about trying to match, natural light, because,
No.
it looks more, well, it looks like something else. So do you have another default?
Yeah.
Do you have a default?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So let's talk about that.
My default lighting for studio.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says to me, Jeff, you have a studio shoot with an actress, do whatever you want, I kind of have that's my cover light for a magazine. I have a cover light situation that I like to use, a little bit harder, punchier, vibrant, that sells the magazine. Like that example of Emma with the Academy Award. The actress won the red.
Wrong one.
She's wearing she's sitting in a chair with the red background. She has that's it. So, I mean, I'm old school. I love my natural light my lit light to be really soft. So I'm into big, broad sources, because in a way, natural light is that way. I'm sort of trying to mimic natural light because I like the way natural light looks. I know it's lit, but I want it to be forgiving. And that's one of the reasons why I like natural light a lot. It's very forgiving on the skin. So here I am using silked, and I would use natural light. A lot of my natural light is silked. So I'm using heavily silked, big, broad strobe sources.
Mm-hmm.
It's covering the entire area. I could shoot 10 people on this background and it would all be the same.
Right. Because it's broad enough. Because the thing is, when I see people use silks for outdoor shooting, like say, going back to this example,
That's silked.
that's silked, right? And you can tell, because if it wasn't silked, it would be, hot spots everywhere, right? But I find that silk could be limiting if you're shooting full body, because then you'll see the shadow of the silk on the ground. So how do you deal with that?
Photoshop.
Seriously?
Depends.
Okay. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I use a silk umbrella.
Body.
I use a silk umbrella, or I use a 12 by, so there is no marks. Like I have the ability to use. I'll have I can bring a crane in and drop and hang a 20 by over someone's head. It's not always small source, but I'm 90% natural light in all those pictures.
Okay.
Big time.
Okay.
That one, even of Emily. Not Emily. I forgot her name, in the green dress, in the Gucci dress.
This one?
Emily Blunt. Yeah, that's natural light through a window in a bedroom.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And I knew that light was going to be coming through that bedroom at that time of day, and that's one of the reasons why I shot there.
Okay. How much time are you usually given for these type of shoots? In other words, how quickly do you need to work?
15 minutes. It can be 15 minutes, or it could be the entire day for a cover and inside, depending upon how many shots they need. Sometimes, they give me the full day, but I only need to take half the day to shoot it.
Okay.
You need time. The more time you have, the higher chances of having better work. I can take a picture in 5 minutes, but we might get something more special if I have more time. So
I'm just looking at your advertising work now, just to show the difference between, and really, is there that much difference in terms of the final product, or is there a lot of difference in the preparations?
No, I mean, some jobs are completely different, and some jobs I feel like I'm shooting an editorial. It all depends. Really depends on the job. But there's a lot more preparation that goes into it. Like, for instance, the Kinder Joy with those kids and the dad. I know it's a random shot. I mean, that took the casting, and what was involved in doing that shot was crazy. Because you're talking about a big corporation, and everyone has to approve the models. Those kids aren't the kids of that dad's, but everyone's specifically picked for a reason. It's crazy how, and the styling, every time you want to change a shirt, it has to go through a chain of people approving the shirt change. It's micromanaged. Whereas, I could do that in my house pretty quick. I can do it in my house pretty quick, but it takes a village to create that shot. It seems simple. It doesn't seem like that complicated of a shot, but that was part of a whole day doing that scenario.
Well, I can imagine if this was like an editorial shoot, you might not have, to go through so many approvals to change something, right?
Exactly. So yeah, when it's editorial, it's usually your call. So crazy. I'm not.
We talked about Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh yeah. So if you go to cover, oh no, it's okay. Jimmy Kimmel. My first assignment with him, and I was a fly fishing guide. I got an email from a magazine saying, "Can you go fly fishing with Jimmy in Montana for an editorial?" I was like, "Oh my God, that'd be a bliss." So I got the job. I was over Art Schreiber and I had the same agency. We were at the same agency, and he was up for it, and I was up for it. And I remember going, "Well, Art doesn't fly fish," like, come on, let me get it. And I like Jimmy Kimmel, and I wanted to photograph him. And so when I spent the week with, so many days with him up in Montana, photographing him for this assignment, I started a working relationship with him. He knows how I shoot. I shoot fast. I'm in and out. And so when it came time for his advertising work with for the Oscars, they needed someone to take his portrait for the Oscar advertisements. I was on the list because I had just shot with him editorially. And then when it's time for him to do his show advertising, I'll do that because I have a rapport with him. So that's what the relationships can happen editorially, and then you can take them into the commercial world.
So this is interesting because I'm just going to stop screen sharing for a second because I wanted to kind of circle back to the Banana Republic shoot, the first, big campaign that you shot. And you say you got lucky, which in a way you did, but, I won't say that it was complete luck, like out of the blue kind of luck, because you worked towards that. Like you saw an opportunity to show your work to the right person, decision maker, to end up cold calling you, to hire you for a shoot. But you still had to put in the work to find out, who is the art director, for example, and then shoot a series of test shots just for him, right? To as a gift, to get his attention. So, that doesn't mean that you just sat on your ass for, until you waited for the phone call to ring. Like you still work towards it. So I can't say it's complete luck. What I'm thinking is that, like for me, it was kind of the same. I got a campaign to shoot, I think in the second year of after assisting, right? And it was for a telecommunications company in Canada. Rogers is the name, and they're still around. But and I remember doing something quite similar where I found, I think at that time he was a senior art director, and I just kind of made up a little mini portfolio book. Have you seen those kind of like if you look Roscoe gels, you can get a sample pack where you can get all the different gels in like a little kind of thing that you kind of fan out, and you can pick the one that you want to buy. Mine was like kind of riveted at the corner, at the top left corner, so he can kind of pan out all my images, all my prints, and see like I think I made like 6 prints, and I just kind of punched them in the corner, and I wrote a handwritten note at the back of the promo, and I hand delivered it to his office because I didn't want. I thought a postage stamp would be ugly, right? And I was too cheap to send the courier, so I went down and I hand delivered it to the receptionist so she can put it in his office without any postage stamps or any delivery memos stuck to it, right? And he called me that very night, like it was that instant, and specifically saying that he appreciated the fact that I hadn't written the note, so that it felt very human for him.
Big deal.
Yeah, apparently
personal touches. I'm into that. I do that all the time.
Yeah, so I didn't know how powerful that was, but it worked out really well, and I shot for them like one job a month for about a year and a half. Yeah, it was great, and it was campaign. It was just like it was a long going campaign that they required roughly a shoot a month, and I was over the moon. Like I didn't even care about the money, right? Because
no, it's not about the money. It should never be about the money. Unfortunately, it should be about it's not about money. If you want to be a photographer to make money, you're in the wrong profession. It's about
I do agree. It's like probably one of the worst jobs to do for money.
Or it could also be extremely lucrative. It's just you can't. When you're making it, you can do really well, but it's you're an independent contractor, so it can be feast or famine. The highs and lows. I always tell people, I'm like, I'm king of the world. I'm so busy. I'm doing so well. I can't believe it. Oh my God, I have extra money. I'm doing great. Oh my God, I'm shooting campaigns. no one's ever going to hire me again. I suck. No, I'll never work again. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to sell everything. Oh my God, I can't believe how busy I am. So it's just like it.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a little more than 22 years, I think, 23 years. I don't know. And you still don't get over it. And the loss of losing a job still cuts just as hard. Oh my God. You're up for a job, you almost get it, you think you're going to get it, you do all this work for it, you make treatments, you put portfolios together, you spend weeks and budgets and things, and then of course you're not supposed to, but then you count your chickens before they're hatched, and then you don't get it. It's devastating.
I've been
to this day. It's devastating.
I've been through all of that because I mean,
it makes you a special person. Photographers are special in that way, and what we do, you kind of have your skin. You sort of build a callus.
Yeah,
where you're supposed to be anyway.
I mean, I think I would feel a lot better if clients would just have the decency to call me and say, you didn't get the job, we gave it to someone else, right?
No.
And I lost a big job in LA actually, but they had the decency to call me and say,
we decided to go in a different creative direction.
Well,
we decided to go in a different creative direction is what my first book should be called.
Well, there's a new term for that now. There's no longer that. It's the job's been delayed.
Oh, yeah. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's
which is code for it's canceled, but it sounds too harsh, or we gave it to someone else. So
they decided
we just didn't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, that component of the campaign is not happening anymore. I had that one the other day. I was up for some Target job, which I would do, Target's cool to shoot for. And they decided they're not doing it. I'm like, what? They just decided not to do it? Like, how can they let that be? How does that happen? Did someone else get it?
So the one in LA that I lost was they told me that it went to someone else. I mean, they couldn't really lie because the job was given the green light. It was going ahead anyway. So they knew that I would eventually see the work that was shot by someone else. And the only thing that made me feel better was that it was done amazingly well. And I even questioned myself if I could have done a better job.
I get that all the time. I'm like, at least like if I don't get a job and someone else gets it, I'd be like, wow, okay, well, I couldn't have done it like that. Or I'm glad they got it. I actually say that when how it was shot, I'm like, I don't know if I could. That's not me as a photographer. It's worse when it's you. Like, the other day, my team, teams work with other photographers. My assistant and my Digitech, they were working with another photographer, and they called me up saying, "Oh man, we were just on the job, and your name was all over it." I'm like, "What was it?" And they describe it in detail. I'm like, "Oh God, it's so me. I can't believe I didn't. Who shot it? Like, why didn't I get? They're like, Jeff, it should have been yours." I'm like, "Don't tell me that." That kills me.
Yeah,
I wasn't even up for it. How am I supposed to get a job if I'm not even up for it?
Yeah, it's quite actually. Photographers actually are quite isolated in the industry, in the photography industry, because we're all competitors. But it's the crew that gets to gossip the most because they get to work for different jobs for different photographers, and all that gossip comes from the crew.
I mean, yeah, the joke is there's like a couple jokes. Like some of my team works for Annie or has worked for Annie Leibovitz. And like my first thing I say, like if I'm doing a job, I'm like, okay, just make it look like Annie. It's a joke, like make, give me the Annie lighting. And they like roll their eyes. That's, you get, a lot of people work for the same people. But I communicate with a lot of photographers like you. I'm a photographer friend. I have a lot of friends that are photographers because I think it's an important thing to have. There's not many of us that shoot the same way, especially in the genre that I shoot in. There's not many people. And so it's nice to be able to communicate with other photographers that do what you do. If you have a question or billing question.
Well, I mean, You know what I found though, Jeff, is that it's no problem being friends with other photographers, even in a group, as long as there is no direct competitor in that group. Because
as long as they don't take your job.
yeah, right. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to think back, right? All my friends who are photographers, we don't compete directly for the same type of work. And even like our group, you and I are in, we're not competing against each other either. And I think that, but if we did, it could be different. I don't know.
And again, like even if it was the same exact genre that we were working in, stylistically, you really have to be. It's hard that you have the same exact style as another photographer shooting in the same thing. Like everyone shoots a little bit different. Not everyone's the same. So
yeah,
there's photographers that I'm always up against. The same photographers I'm usually up against, but it also depends on the creative. Like, if the creative shifts to a more natural thing, I'm like, I have a better chance of getting it.
Mm-hmm.
If it starts to become more conceptual, I don't have as much of a chance. As much. So I kind of know.
But the question is, can you be friends with these photographers you're always bidding against? Yeah. Are you?
No, I am. I am friends with. I am friends with. Well, I'm at a photo agency, and I'm friends with all the photographers there. We're pretty tight.
Right.
Do you want to see one of my portfolios? Do you want to see like how I do? I have.
Yeah.
I can.
Do you have it near you, nearby?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay,
I have
go
it
get it.
10 steps away. It might be neat to see. I'll just hold on. I think it's kind of cool. Okay, so I have a beautiful leather hard clamshell case that's getting finished, and so this is my interim case of so I use in the type of photography. This is my entertainment portfolio. So I have a lifestyle portfolio that's actually in a book form where there's a pagination to it. Whereas this is my entertainment portfolio. So this is a box O prints. I call it the box O prints. So it's kind of hard to say. It's about
huge,
16 by 20. And it's pretty big.
Like, how do you even courier that to someone?
Is that... No, this is how I show up. And look how big the prints are. So people can go through... And you know what? We're photographers. Like, we print...
Yeah.
We should be able to print these.
Yeah.
And my finished work is usually printed. So why not look at your work while it's printed? So like I can, everything's really big and it's nothing's precious.
Okay.
To me, the pages can fold. I'm not like, oh my gosh, someone's going to ruin a print. I can always reprint it with my big.
I think, before you go on, I'd like to point out that the fact that you don't think they're precious, I think already is starting to brand yourself as someone who is very kind of spontaneous in your shooting.
Yeah. I mean, this is, 20 minutes with her for a cover of, sometimes you don't have much time, but this is when I do a portfolio presentation in front of the clients. What I like about my portfolio is that I'm the one that's turning the pages. I'm the one that's presenting the work. If it's my other portfolio, they're turning the pages. But it's me, and I pick up an image up and I show them like, this is for a cover of GQ France. This is Jason smiling. I'll say something, and everyone laughs. Like, so there's just every picture has a story. Every, I say, you never know. Natural light. I'll say how I shot it, or I'll say where I shot it, or this is the most difficult photo shoot I've ever done. On a golf course with Larry. So it's fun to have the tactile story,
right,
with
So are these all covers because they're all single images? Like, how would you present a series of images?
No. Well, celebrity-wise, entertainment-wise, they're always single sheets. Entertainment's movie poster, right? So that's purposely single sheet, single individual. There's no pagination. Here's Jimmy, right? The one I went to Montana with. It's like this. The image should sell the story itself. I'm not selling story I'm not doing stories. Entertainment wise, I'm not doing stories. Every image is its own story.
So you use you outsource the printing, or do you do yourself?
I do myself. I literally don't know how it works. I just push a button. Everything's calibrated. It comes out like this. I mean, everything's retouched, and I literally just push the button. No, it's as easy. I don't. It's like magic. And this isn't even retouched. Sometimes I'm bad. Sometimes I don't even I'll just throw a picture in thinking that's good enough.
Yeah, I love that shot.
Michael B. Jordan's right there. Moss Teller, Zach. I mean, that's getting,
Now, okay, was that shot the extra shot at the end of the day, or was that like part of the?
Yeah, that was the one where I heated the pole to 90 degrees. Them thinking, to get them in there. You never know. Like in his driveway.
Now, in his driveway, was that because
you would never know
there was no other choice because of something, or did you plan it?
Well, I had his backyard. I had his backyard, but I set up my seamless. My backdrop in his driveway.
Do a lot of notables want to be just shot at their home for the sake of convenience?
Not really. It's private. Usually they don't let you into their home. That's the Academy lets me back. Would hire me to go backstage and make a studio, and I would photograph whoever won. That was really special. So I don't want to bore you, but it's interesting to see a portfolio and to have it. I think it's really, I've never done that. I've never done a video thing. This is this is a good example of kind of light and spontaneous, right? Henry Cavill with his dog.
Yeah, that's great, Jeff.
Stuff like that.
Thanks so much. I'm glad you did this so I don't have to manually pull up your images from your website onto the screen. This is like you just
I like this because it's exactly. It's legit. It's not a website.
Awesome. I think I'm pretty good. I'm done.
All right.
I want to thank you for spending the time with me today. And this is a series that I hope I can keep going on, interviewing different people that are not specifically related to the stuff that I do. But I never believed that photography was limited to subject matter anyway. I think most photographers think that photography is photography. There's good photography, there's bad photography. Or put it this way, there's photography you like and photography you don't like, which is totally fine, but that should not be related to subject matter. Right? Yeah. So thanks, Jeff. And, exactly. I hope we can do it again sometime when...
Thank you, Michael.
When you have more work to show.